I would.
Harlan?
Greetings, my fellow Americans. My friend Rob Birkeland is here from the Larson Group in Crosslake. And I was just sitting here thinking about the impact that real estate has on Crow Wing County, Crosslake specifically. And it's almost, we used to say it didn't matter what was happening in the stock market or around the world, property values just keep going up, 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 and up. And I was able to participate in that a year and a half ago. And I'm now functionally debt-free. And thanks in part to Rob and his team. But the market is a little different now this year, and more people with more information, and they are quicker to put on the brakes when inflation starts to affect their ability to buy and borrow. So I asked Rob to come and give us an update on the market here in Minnesota and the Brainerd Lakes area. Rob Birkeland.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Good, okay. Thanks, Harlan. Done this before. It's kind of fun that the difference between when I've done this in the past and now is Harlan's daughter, Kendra, is working for us. She's our social media marketing expert. I know it's hard to believe that one of Harlan's children would be a social media expert, but she's following in Dad's footsteps as far as getting to know the area and knowing people. So it's kind of fun. We did help Harlan and Ann a few years ago sell. Timing was excellent. I can say with confidence that they set a new level for lakeshore properties in the area when we sold. So that was fun. It's not easy to step away from your lake home. That's they never teach us that in real estate class on how that's kind of an emotional part of life, and they don't really teach that. So appreciate your trust, Harlan. So a little bit of history here. I'm going to do a lot of talking. I don't know if happy to answer any questions, jump in, interrupt me. It doesn't not an issue. But if we look at, you're going to hear a lot in the news, and I've read a lot in the Wall Street Journal and hear about, mortgage rates are high. I wouldn't say they're even close to historically high. They're high for the last 15 years. So they're above, they're in the upper sixes right now. A couple of weeks ago, they were in the upper fives. They keep jumping around. And then you're also going to hear where housing sales are starting to slow down. And that is, there's two market, well, not really two markets in that data. The Case-Shiller Index kind of looks at homes in general. So it's focused more on residential homes, not so much on lakeshore. And in our market, we have two distinct markets. We are a second home vacation market, which I think all of you understand, but we also have a much stronger primary residential market, and which is kind of exciting because we haven't really had that in a while. So if you kind of look at both markets over the last 3 years, let's say we'll start pre-COVID, we had a period of probably a solid decade where we didn't have a lot of appreciation in real estate. We had it in construction. Cost of goods and the cost of labor were going up over that time period, but real estate values weren't necessarily following. And I'm talking about like 2008 to 2018, let's say that 10-year stretch. Then COVID hit and everything changed. The ability to work remote, and look at us today, we're doing a Zoom meeting. I don't know if we would have dreamed of this like 10 years ago. So it gives people flexibility to do things, stay at home, travel, still stay connected to work in their groups. That's benefiting our area. And we basically, everyone got the green light to kind of live a new lifestyle, and a lot of people took advantage of it. And a lot of people took advantage of it here in the Brainerd Lakes area. And so we basically recaptured that 10-year period where we didn't have a lot of appreciation. We basically had it in about a 3-year period, starting with COVID, so 2019. And the summer of 2020 might be, I've been doing this 26 years, grew up in Pequot, the Crosslake area. Probably it would be fun to have another year like that. It'll be unique to do it. We had a tremendous amount of inventory and a significant amount of buyers all making the match during that year. Very few sellers didn't accomplish their goal of a good price. They weren't historically high at the time. And a lot of buyers were able to find a great house with a great interest rate. So it was kind of the perfect market. And then as we've moved out of 2020, we're now in very much a seller's market. And this is the off-lake residential and the lakeshore, pretty much the same. We've started to see spec building, not on the lake so much, but off-lake residential, which is good because it creates opportunities. People always like to, new houses are nice to buy, and that's good. So we have, even with the spec home building, we still have low inventory. And so where the kind of the current situation is, where there's nothing telling us here in the Brainerd Lakes area right now, statistically, that values are coming down and that we're not in the strong seller's market. Now, we still have snow on the ground, and the lakeshore market is, we've had a few sales over the winter, some pretty significant numbers, both on the chains and off the chains, different lakes. And so that's kind of continuing, but those could be buyers, what I call maybe hangover buyers from last year, that are very motivated and were not able to find something and are bound and determined to not miss another summer. So that could be that buyer group kind of participating right now. So we won't really know where the lakeshore market is until probably mid-June, till we really get through the spring, see how much inventory comes on the market. And in my opinion, it'll be inventory driven. We don't need hundreds of families to choose to live the lake lifestyle in the area to have that market stay balanced or even at a seller's market and to hold values. The off-lake residential market is different. And what's different that I've seen in the years that I've been doing this and lived here is not everybody wants to move here and be on the lake. We don't have, manufacturing. With my kids playing basketball, I've been around to a lot of gyms and schools, traveling a lot through northern Minnesota and elsewhere. And, you go to Detroit Lakes and they have a new facility, and they were, they got $1 million donation from Lake Shirts, which is a shirt company in Detroit Lakes. And you go to Purim and, they have Tuffy Nelson's thing there with the dog food and the potato chips and the candies and all that. They have, manufacturing. We don't really have that. We have Pequot Tool, which is a cloth stamping. These are great companies and they do very well, but we don't have, those type of industries. So really the people that are moving to our school district, specifically Pequot or the Brainerd Lakes area, are either coming to live the remote lifestyle where one of the parents can travel and still work, and then they choose to raise their family or live in this area. That's the big driver. And a lot of those people do not want to be on the lake. Their slice of heaven is 2.5 or 5 acres in the woods. And that's really what's turbocharged the primary residential market in the last few years. We really haven't seen that in the past. So the spec building's good. It creates opportunity for people that, live here to maybe do some different things. It keeps the employment strong for the contractors. So that isn't, that market is going to be affected significantly by interest rates more than the lakeshore market. So the rates being higher are intentional because they're trying to slow things down. They're trying to slow inflation down, and they are probably they'll be successful because they've done it in the past. They'll do it again. But I go back to what I said before is we're different because the people, the ability to work remote and the people's willingness and wanting to be up here to live this lifestyle could buck the national trends of housing slowing down, like in Scottsdale, Phoenix. Southwest Florida was hit by the hurricane, so it's really hard to know what's going on there because there's just so much devastation and people are having to buy houses, to live down there. So that market's a little bit different. But I think you'll see, some markets slowing down, others doing well. I think a lot of people are going to leave the state, unfortunately, and not be residents. That's what we're hearing from our clients, but they don't want to leave the lifestyle, but they don't want to be a resident of the state. That's for their reasons. Most of it's driven by taxes, but they don't want to leave. So I think what a lot of them are going to do is sell their 1 or 2 houses they have in Minnesota, buy something down south, and then have one place, either in the lake area, which is basically St. Cloud or north. It doesn't have to be Brainerd. It could be Detroit Lakes, Alexandria, Walker, Grand Rapids. They'll have a place, and then they'll be a resident of a different state. So there's a lot of factors that are playing into it. And when you don't need thousands of families to move into your market, you can kind of buck those trends of what's going on. So kind of to give you a snapshot of where we're at in the market, we have low inventory, both residential and lakeshore. Lakeshore, we won't know. We have clients that are going to list that we're advising, and it's pretty hard. It's hard to get excited about lakeshore, especially if you haven't lived that lifestyle before, when you have so much snow and the ice is white, the lake is white instead of blue because everything's frozen. So that'll take some time. The off-lake residential market, the last I looked a few days ago, a lot of in the let's say $400,000 to $550,000 price range. I think pretty much what was out there was new construction. There wasn't a lot of existing homes. So those inventory levels are low too. So we'll see. The next 3 to 4 months will be, I think, pretty critical to the next couple of years, depending, just buyer demand is going to be, it's going to be interesting to watch. Maybe we'll catch a break and it won't slow down as much as other parts of the country, and we'll be able to have our values hold. So, but right now we're at historically high values, off-lake residential and on the lakeshore. And that has been the case probably for the last 12 months, maybe 18. It hasn't been that long. It took us a while, from 2020 on, it took us a while to get to those historic levels. It didn't happen in just 3 months. We had to work through some inventory. We had to, get buyers more comfortable, create sense of urgency, things like that. So we have now surpassed kind of what I believe the peak of the market was, which was like 2006 or 2007, which was our past historic highs. And we've done that. So now we got to see how long we can hold there. If it does come down a little bit, that's probably not the end of the world for everybody, because values is still going to be most people's best investment. So that's kind of my quick update on the market. I'd like to leave it open to questions or anything. And so I'm going to kind of step back here.
Rob, short-term rentals, VRBO, Airbnb. How about an update on that?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Harlan. I appreciate it. When we were working, when the Crosslakers, it was a group that got together, and we looked at kind of the future of Crosslake, and it was a bunch of different groups that had different interest levels. And one of the things that was really profound that somebody said in the meeting is, and I'll talk specifically about Crosslake, so we have to look at Crosslake as the resort. The town is the resort. We have Boyd Lodge, fantastic family-owned resort. We have other great resorts. Tim Berg is another resort owner. We don't have that many anymore, but what we have are very well run. Sharon Brock's have a great resort, but they're all more family, which is a plus more than the corporate side, where when you go to Gull Lake, you've got Madden's, Cragen's, and Grandview, which are the 3 largest outstate resorts, and they have all the amenities right there at the resort. So we need to look at Crosslake specifically, and Pequot could do that also, as the town is the resort. So like in Crosslake, we have a golf course, we have a miniature golf course, we have a candy store, a coffee shop, all the things that a resort would give you, we have in our town. But the thing we don't have now, and I've been doing that, I mentioned before, I've been selling real estate 26 years. We had hundreds of cabins around the Whitefish chain when I started selling real estate. And a lot of those resorts are gone now. And people want to be here. And a lot of people want to be here for a period of time and then leave. They don't want to own. And this is going on all over the world. This isn't unique to us. I mean, you can do Airbnb, VRBO anywhere on any trip. So I think it's critical to the health of our economy, for our business owners, restaurants, retail, gas stations, that our core, that's what our business is. We don't have, huge manufacturing. We have great, specific, really detailed, high output companies, but we don't have large manufacturing. So, we're a service oriented market. So we need, in my opinion, and there's probably property owners that don't agree with this, but I think we need those VRBOs. Now, how we manage that, that's the art of it. And the county's kind of bouncing things around with, who's going to manage it? How much management do we want? Do we want another level of, involvement on the county, on the, the local government level? How does that going to look? That's getting worked out right now. It's not going to, in my opinion, happen. There's going to be some more ebbs and flows on how it's done. The argument with the resort owners the resort owners are held to a different standard. They have to do water tests. There's different things there because they're licensed and they're commercial. And so the state monitors them and they get frustrated because the homeowner isn't that way. It's more the wild, wild west. Yeah. But now they're trying to watch how many people are in the home. How are they marketing it? Is this a 3-bedroom cabin with a loft, and are they trying to sleep 20 people in it every week all summer? Those are the things that they need to look at. So now the city of Crosslake is going to have their own ordinance. The biggest challenge you have is, as far as I go, we don't sell cabins as investments. You rent because that's something you want to do to subsidize your income. We're not out here promoting, hey, buy this cabin, here's the return on investment. That's really not what buyers are buying for. They want to have a cabin. They can't use it the whole time, and they want to get something out of it to either pay for part of their expenses or maybe break even. It's not a big financial, in my opinion, unless they have tax exchange money to come in to buy it. So the challenge you have is when you're a realtor or you're a buyer is you can drive down, you jump in your car in Crosslake, you drive down County Road 16, you hit the 8-Pine, you go south on 371, and you go through Crosslake, Ideal Township, Jenkins Township, Pequot, Nisswa. They all have different ordinance. They all have different regulations on how you rent and what you do. And the buyer's going, hey, it's Crow Wing County. I don't get it. Why is one city? So from my standpoint, it'd be nice if the county just had an ordinance, but I don't believe it's going to go that way. So now it's in the hands of the cities, and the city will look at it different based on who's in their town. Like the city of East Gull Lake or Nisswa, they only allow 4 rentals a year. Well, they've got the resorts that support, that's a big part of their economy. So they have a different lens. Crosslake doesn't have the big resorts. So should they allow weekly rentals? Should they allow, what are some things that they need to do? So I'll go back to my opening comment is, if you look at your city as the resort, then you need those beds in your resort to get your people to support the services you provide. So I think it's critical. Managing it will, that is also critical. It shouldn't be, there should be some, you're putting people in your home. Like still a fireman for Ideal. I was up last night because we had a furnace in a house catch fire. Well, these things happen, right? So you have to have people are in your home using your house. There have to be some basic safety, smoke detectors working, their septic system needs to be working, different things like that. So that's still important. So that's kind of the ebb and flow. It's the hot topic right now. And then who enforces the unruly renter? That's probably where it really hits home, especially if you're in the neighborhood or you're the immediate neighbor. So hopefully that covered it, Harlan. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question because of the last 2 years or so, we're up in Pine River in
Yes.
Cass County. And our realtors talk about the number of people moving from the metro area up here, basically because they're able to work with the internet and everything. Now they're able to work from home and they want to get out of the metro area.
Correct.
You seeing that declining, or is it still a major driver?
Great question. So there's I think two avenues to discuss. One is I remember during the height of COVID, I had some friends, clients who, were running companies, big companies, and their boards wanted them to live at their lake cabin and work because they wanted them close, but they wanted them in an area that was more remote. So they didn't, like their executive teams, they didn't, want them together. So that way they could go to facilities and do different things. That is eased off a little bit, but I don't think it is going to go away, because I was also talking to one of my son's AAU basketball coaches, runs a law firm. That's his main job. And he said they probably won't go back to every day in the office because they're learning in their business that they're more efficient when they're working at home. And they'll have, suites, and they'll have meetings and things like that. Well, if you're more efficient at home and you're allowed to live wherever you want, and you can maybe have to travel in once a week for, group meetings and stuff like that, that's also an advantage to the employer to find good employees. So that's a big part of it if that continues. The other thing that is critical, almost more important than the employer letting you live that lifestyle, is the ability to work at home, having the broadband. And that's one of the things being involved with Ideal Township. We're through the phone company out of Emily and Crosslake, Tremolo, I think is the new name of it. We're expanding the Wi-Fi capabilities on the north side of Whitefish, on the west side, and not just for the lake, for everybody, into the city of Jenkins Township, Ideal Township, Timothy Township. For years, we would lose sales to people that wanted to work remote, and they would go buy in the CTC coverage area because the internet was better. And so we're trying to address that. So I tend to think that it will continue, maybe not in every industry, but in certain professions, it'll happen. And that, I think that's from my standpoint as a realtor, the number one thing that a township or a city can do for value. There's probably two things. The internet access is probably as high up there as having a great school. I just really think because it applies to school, it applies to both school and work. Kids being able to go to school remote when we have bad weather days, all those different things. So I believe it's going to continue, maybe not at the pace for the last few years, but I do think it's going to continue.
Yeah, Rob, as you speak about CTC, I can think back when they had the Region 5 had the Resilient Region initiative going on. Broadband was a huge part of looking at the Resilient Region. And there was a lot of attention given to our area by state officials, recognizing, and they didn't even envision, I think, remote work as much as just the reason that you needed broadband in the first place. Part of it was senior living, being able to stay in your home. But I have a different type of question for you. I can remember back quite a while ago, there was a great deal, probably in the recession of 2008, 2009, a great deal of single family dwellings in the Twin Cities that were acquired by investors. And they basically, I think, kind of hijacked first time home buyers from opportunities to buy affordable housing because they were being bought up by investment groups. I'm just curious if we've run into that issue in this area.
We have not, fortunately.
Yes.
Fortunately, we have not. Now you have small syndicates that buy things, partnerships, maybe, families that get, you've got groups of maybe 2 or 3 families or 2 or 3 individuals that will buy places, and that's how they make their living, is buying and renting. But we don't have BlackRock, I think, was one of the large ones where they're buying up, thousands of homes. And that has made it very difficult for the first-time home buyer, is probably one of the main reasons why values went up so fast. I believe, these are smart people that, are specializing in real estate, and they saw an opportunity. And I believe they looked at cost of construction, cost of labor, all that. And then they looked at what an existing house they can buy it for and what they can rent it for. And it financially made sense. I don't think they're probably as involved right now. So the big question is, are they going to dump their inventory? If, they're not tied to it, right? It's an investment for them. So if they can put their dollars somewhere else and have it grow faster, they might take a short-term loss for a long-term gain, but that'll have a huge impact on the values. If we have this huge influx of inventory, but also the US is still probably one of the best places to invest. As crazy as the world is and all these different things, housing in the United States is probably one of the best assets you can own. And if that's in your lane of expertise, I don't see them dumping it, but we'll see. I read that in the Wall Street Journal. I hear that from realtors, the Realtors Association, and our Keller Williams, our brokerage company. It's a real concern. That's a very good, very, very good question. But I don't think we'll have that issue here. I don't. I think we'll have the one or two properties, different things like that, but we won't have the, anything like that. And I don't think apartments, there's probably still not enough apartments and townhomes and rentals in our market. So I think we're pretty safe. But the reality is the statistics you hear about nationwide have an effect on buyer perception in our market, whether we're being affected by those specific trends or not. So that's where it does come in. Buyer confidence, different things like that. Lending restrictions, stuff like that will affect our market.
It does segue into another part of the question, and that's what does the rental market look like now? It seems that there's a real high demand for rentals and
huge demand.
Spaces just aren't there.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Hall, the fire chief in Nisswa, lost his house last week to a chimney fire. And they own Copper Creek, and fortunately he had some rentals so he could move into there. But you get people that, it's one thing to find a rental, to be looking when you're in a place or you're living somewhere. But if you have a tragedy or something happen where you have to move, it's very, very, very difficult to find things. So that market's even tighter than the residential market. We have people, in the summer, it's really hard. Rentals are hard to find. It's easier to find somebody at home right now than it is to find them a rental. And that says a lot because we don't have much for inventory, but at least we have inventory. So.
Thank you.
City of Crosslake, Rob, is rumbling again about building affordable housing. And I think with material prices and stuff, it's just not going to happen. What's the magic?
I don't know that Crosslake will ever qualify for market rate housing just because of the demographics, which is unfortunate because their models don't work. I think other cities around our area would qualify. You need to have city sewer and city water, which limits a lot of things and limits the area and puts some limitations on it. There is a strong push for an apartment building in Crosslake based off of the success of Whitefish at the Lakes. I think they're learning that there's a need for apartments for that demographic, that segment of the population that one spouse is maybe moving into Whitefish at the Lakes, and the other spouse would like to live not in that type of setting, but very close. So that very well could happen. And I also am aware that Pequot has some apartments and townhouses coming in. So I think it will happen. I don't know that it will. I think it's going to be developers doing it based on what the market conditions are and not based on government, the state of Minnesota subsidizing the project, because I don't think it really, we're too affluent on the lakeshore. And then they put that in their models, even though people are retired, it just doesn't work. So I do think you'll see some projects. I've heard about a project in Pequot. I don't know the specifics. I think I know what's going in. There's a lot going on in Pequot now with the school and ball fields and which is good. And then Crosslake, I think, will have a project. So we probably need more.
Related to that, Rob, is housing an issue in terms of finding employees? You know, the price point, we're a service area. And, you know, it's really hard for an employee to take a $15, $20 job and have to drive 40 miles just to get to it.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, it's very difficult. And that is very common in second home markets around the country. I used to be on the resort and second home committee for our Realtors Association, and that was an issue in Colorado and northern Idaho. That is a very real situation. So as much as we can, you know, and the other issue is, you know, all these resort and second home markets around the country don't have a strong lobby at the state because we just don't have the population. So it's really hard to break through the noise and break through all the stuff that's going on and all the requests. So, you know, these are probably issues that need to be resolved locally. You know, and that's wages will probably go up and, you know, different things like that. So that is an issue. I'm certain. Well, I'm certain there would be other manufacturing companies that would love to have their companies up here, whether they're corporate owned or individually owned. They'd love to do it here, but we don't have if they were to sit down with any of us, we'd have to say that's going to be probably one of your biggest challenges is finding employees and housing them. But everyone would love this lifestyle. They'd love to have their kids go to our schools, whether it's Pine River, Pequot, Pillager, Brainerd, Crosby. They'd love that. We have issues but not as many, I don't think, as the metro schools, whether or bigger city schools. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons to be here, but then it all breaks down to land to build, housing, employees. Good question.
Well, we have reached the top of the hour. Time to wrap things up. Any other announcements?